Hello, everyone. It's Linda from LindaZ, and I want to welcome you to our weekly video, normally on Thursday morning at 8 a.m., but you might be coming home from work and turning it on, so grab a glass of water, a glass of wine, or a cup of coffee, and enjoy what we're going to do today. It's a little longer video. Normally, I only do these for about 20 minutes, but we thought we would give you a little taste of what's going on in our embroidery club, our serger club, and our sew club, which has all been combined into one huge club. That's only $199 for the whole year. You get 36, a minimum of 36 lessons. It comes to about $5 a time. And it really, so many people have commented that I thought it was worth really talking to you about it. We know that you want some of these classes where you can actually sit down with your machine, put it on, click it, stop it, pause it, and then do the design or the technique or whatever it is that we're doing. So I want to give you a little glimpse of what that is, and I'll tell you about who our guest speaker is in a moment, and you'll just love her, I'm sure. We just heard today that the trucks are on their way with the new Bernina Q20 long arm machines with the lift that goes up and down. We're just thrilled about it because it's been very difficult to get a lot of product, as I'm sure you've heard in the past. So we are thrilled. Normally it's when these big trucks come with all this equipment, everybody groans. Now they're just really excited because they can't wait to see it. So check back, those of you that are looking for Q20s, because we normally, Q16s, they're coming in too with this lift up and down, because we have normally have them in stock, but because of what's going on, you know, that backorder word that everybody is talking about, it affects us too. Another product that you can see right behind me we had this wonderful program this last 3 weeks ago, I guess it was. It seems like 3 days ago. And that is the new Tula, and we have a couple left. So those of you that got left out, you definitely need to call us, because we have a special with this wonderful Laura Star. You've probably heard me talk about this. It's got the steam from COVID that we use to, once we clean our mask. Now, do you see how this goes right on my hand and it doesn't have any problem? And then I take it and I go like this, and I have the Heat and Stay Fusible on here, and it's just fabulous. Now I can put this off and turn it this way and put it on. Normally this will sit on the floor, and then the cord will come up onto the ironing board. This is coming with this Tula. Don't miss out on this, free. So you do want to talk to us about that. Now, the other thing that I want to tell you a little about, I know there's some of you that are regulars that watch us every Thursday morning. Did you catch what had happened on my tablecloth that was going on last week? I hope you did, because I didn't get any comments. But at one point I kind of put the tablecloth up like this. Somehow, when I was taking my serger from my car to the table here, the thread had popped out of the tension. Now, if you looked closely at that, that still looked like a really good 2-thread wrap. But if you looked real close and you expanded it to about 200%, you'd see that did not look real well. And so I really want you to know that's not the normal way. And you can do so many cool things. When Mary gets into her serger club, which will be coming next Tuesday, and once a month we do have that, she's going to show you a couple of really cool things on this. So don't miss out on the L850. It's the one that I did on the video last week, and it's all on the Christmas and holiday tablecloth with a candlelight wrap. And this iron, there's a way to maybe get it free. So you do want to call the store and talk to them about it. Now, this club that I talked about today was really a cool thing. I think it's very important that you get involved. You've got these really beautiful new machines, some of you, and we really want you to use them. And we're using product that we know that many of you have purchased, so you'll really learn how to use what is there. Another thing that is coming up for us that we do every year, and it's called our Quilt Week. We are starting out this year on November 6th with Jerry Granata. How many know Jerry from California? He is just amazing. And because of all the restrictions with different states, and we don't know which state is what, and he has decided, and we've decided with him, that we are going to do, he's going to start out our quilt week because he's a master quilter. I don't know if you've ever seen some of the work he's done, but it is exquisite. Unusual, out of the box, things that I never even would have thought to have put into my quilting. And he has won award after award. So he's going to start that out with the Quilt Week on the 6th, and it will be virtual, but it will be live. So I don't know if there is such a thing as live virtual, but it will be live. You can come into our store and see it, or you can be at your home and watching it virtually there. The end of the week will be with our wonderful, illustrious Kay England, who we're just thrilled. We're going to try and get a video on with Kay and us before this week, so you see we are partnering with AccuQuilt, and she has a new quilt that AccuQuilt has, and we will be doing the AccuQuilt with Kay. She comes in for a little guest appearance on Thursday, but her class starts on Friday and Saturday, so she ends up our quilt week on the 14th. And in the interim, we have free motion, we have ruler work, we have crazy patchwork, which is going to be really crazy patchwork. We have oh, I don't know, we wrote a whole bunch of them down. There's almost too many to mention. Quilt as you go. Many, many wonderful techniques. I know some of you can't wait for Quilt Week, and we do limit it, so I wouldn't hesitate to get your money in and, you know, get signed up for it. Now, I think the last thing that I want to tell you today is about this quilt that is on the table. Before you saw it hanging up, well, what's hanging up right now is the Serendipity by Tula Pink. It is totally sold out, but it's such a beautiful quilt, and we still have the pattern, and we do have many of her prints. We carry just about everything that Tula makes, so you would be able to do that. But this is getting you ready for the holidays. I just love this. We had, I don't know, a dozen or 20, something like that. We have 3 left of this, and I think they're $160 or $50, something like that. But look at the circles on here. They're the little round quilted circles that are just absolutely marvelous. The applique, this was actually done by my sister Joni, and she did all the piecing, which is the hard work, and then the quilting, which was a little bit easier, we put together. So, and then I am the lucky one that gets to do the binding. You can see the quilting on the back. I don't know if you can see it up here, but really, really beautiful quilting. Now, I would hope you'll take advantage of some of these kits, because we really think they're marvelous, and the more that you love them, the more we're able to buy. Now, for your biggest treat of the day, I am going to now let our guest, Suellen Gerard, take this away. She is one of our ByAnnie experts, and normally this is done in a ByAnnie class where I think you'd pay like $149. We're giving this to you free today because we want you to see how important we think it is really to work with some of this product and take your time and enjoy it. ByAnnie herself, I just talked to Annie the other day, and she works on Bernina a lot. That's her machine of choice. And she just thanks us so much for what we're doing to really bring her name out there and what we're doing with the things.
And Suellen is doing the project on the Tula thing.
Oh, Suellen is doing, okay, Nick just told me. That's great. I didn't know that. Suellen is doing this project. It's called so it's called the On Control. In control. I guess I'm in control. I'm not in control. Bag. And I've actually made this bag. I just love it. It keeps all my, I do all my hand stuff in there. So when I'm watching TV and I'm doing, or whatever I'm doing, listen to the music, I have this binding on, and that's when I do the hand binding. So I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I do. Suellen is just a wonderful teacher, and you're going to really enjoy this. See you next Thursday. Okay, thanks everyone.
Welcome back to Bags by Annie. She has wonderful patterns. Today we're working on the In Control bag, and this is a great little organizer bag. It has interior pockets of different sizes. There's a zipper pocket on the back, and it has these nice little handles. So to start out with, when Annie does a pattern, she has 3 components. And let me show you a little bit about that. With the In Control, when you're using the pattern, the first thing you do is you cut everything out. And so that's the first step. And I highly recommend using these little squares that you cut and attach for 2 reasons. It helps you make sure that you get all the components, and it labels things so you don't get mixed up. So after you have everything cut out and labeled, then you sew the components, and when you finish sewing the components, then you put the bag together and finish it. In doing that, it's important to have the right tools. You can do them with most any foot you want, but for the most professional looking end product, I find that I use the 1/4 inch foot. And this, it's a 1/4 inch foot on whatever type machine you use. I particularly like this one because it is a 1/4 inch on each side. And there are other, brother I know has feet that have the 1/4 inch on each side. It also has a 1/4 inch mark here, and so that you can make 1/4 inch corners. The next one that I don't know this makes all the difference in the world, and it's an edge stitching foot. And it's different than the blind hem foot because it doesn't have any metal in here. But this is what helps you really do the edge stitching so it looks professional. I do use the very narrow zipper foot when I'm putting in some zippers for part of the time. If I'm sewing on vinyl, the Teflon foot does help, and when I really want to see what's going on, I do like a clear foot, and this one helps you line up because it has the red line in the center and then the red lines at the edges, and so that I can see exactly where I am. So today, what we're going to do is I'll work you through the pattern, and we will start at the beginning and go on through. So the first thing that we're going to do, I'm getting my pattern organized, is we're going to do the handles. Now these handles are very sturdy and nice, but there are a few steps to putting them together. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your fabric and you're going to press it in the center, and then you're going to press the edges in, and then you're going to fold it over the narrow piece of soft and stable that you've cut out. And when you finish having it all put together, then what you're going to do, and this is where I use the edge stitch foot, and I have my labels on here, so now I'm taking my labels off. And I also use my stiletto. And this helps keep these edges all lined up. And so that I do use the stiletto. Okay. I'm going to move my foot over. If you use the same machine all the way through a project, then you know that when you do an edge stitch one time and then you need to edge stitch the same thing on again, then the stitch lines will match up, and it'll look like just one line of stitching. So this is the first step in making these padded handles, and we won't do the whole thing, because the more challenging things I want to be able to spend the time on. But you can see how I'm using the stiletto to make sure that the top and the bottom stay right together. And so we'll go all the way around on this one. So you get the idea. Then after you have finished this, then it says to look and see which is the best side, and then you fold this together. And so you measure up, and you have a line marked right, and so that you've marked where it goes, and you line this up. And because I am using the same foot, And the same settings, I have to kind of floss it a little bit to get it in there. Then I'm going to go forward, but I want to reverse a little bit. Now we'll go forward. And again, the stiletto makes a difference in making sure that you get the handle just right. So what you end up with here is you have 4 layers of fabric that are doubled over, so you have 8 layers of fabric, and then you have 2 layers of soft and stable. And so with 8 layers of fabric and 2 layers of soft and stable, then it's a pretty sturdy little handle. And I'm going to come up here to where I've marked the other end. I marked it in chalk, and so it's harder to see now that it's been in a bag in transit to get here. So here's your handle. The next thing that she has you do is to attach the handles to the bag, then you have the other end of it, the other support. So when you have these rings, you put one end, you've marked on this side, there's a line right here, and you've marked on this side, you put this through the ring. And then again, I'm going to use the edge stitch foot. I love the knee lift, and I love the... Did you know if you have a Bernina that doesn't have the needle up, needle down, if you have one of the fancy foot pedals, then you can still have the needle up, needle down function because it's controlled in the foot pedal. So like when I'm using my little 350, I put on the fancier foot control, and then I have the needle up, needle down function that I wouldn't otherwise, because I really like having the needle up, needle down function. And then we're going to make a little crossing. And we'll go back over here. This gives a double line across the top for extra security. I'll do the other half of the X. And then just go back a little bit. Okay, so that's all there is to putting these rings on. I think the rings are awesome. So there we go. The next thing you're going to do is, oh, I forgot to show you one thing. To do the handles are made secure by having some strapping on the inside. And so the strapping is what keeps the handles, that way the fabric doesn't collapse in. And so we have the strapping here, and what I've done is I've just sewn a 1/4 inch seam, I've pressed it open on the iron, and now I want to turn it. And on little things like this, it's not that big a deal. But when you're doing lots and lots of them, or a very long thing, then this tool is fabulous. And it just makes short work of it. And after you have this, then you can use a safety pin, or you can use this tool, and it just, if you have to go past seams or if you have to go around corners, using this tool makes a big difference. So that makes short work of it. And then you're going to edge stitch each side of this, just an edge stitch. And then you have your supports for the other end of the handle. So after you have the handles done, then you start on other parts of the bag. Let me get some of this out of the way. And the next part, we're going to do some binding. And you use the same process to bind any of the edges. And so I'm just going to demonstrate one of them on one piece, because you use this exact same process to bind all of the different edges. For this, I use the 1/4 inch foot first. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch right here. Keep the edges lined up. Cut it. Then I'm going to finger press. You can use the iron, or you can have a little mini iron right next to you, but for this, the finger pressing works just fine. Then I'm going to move back to my edge stitch foot, and this time I'm going to stitch in the ditch. And so I'm not moving it over. I'm going to line the, I keep looking on the back to make sure that it's more than, it goes past that edge. And let's get the thread going to the back. And there we go. And I'm just going to keep making sure the back, this is wrapped all the way around. And this, by keeping this edge stitch foot, that middle guide right next to that seam, you don't even see it in the finished product. It's invisible. And on the back side, it looks equally nice. So then you're going to edge stitch. The other thing you're going to do is, and we'll move the needle over for this, is you're going to seal the edges on all the different pieces of the bag. Because by doing this, it keeps those edges from turning back under. And so that as you're doing this, you're not going to end up with I've had to reverse sew or frog it, as some people call it, but use the seam ripper to take out seams if the fabric is turned back, and so you have the edge of the fabric just poking out of the seam. So that's all there is to getting many of the pieces. You're going to be edging all of the edges of the bag, and you're going to do that for the pockets. So you'll have quite a bit of the edging, but it's an easy process and it's pretty standard. After that, you're going to be putting in a zipper. So the next thing we're going to do is get the pockets. Now, on 3 of the pockets, all you're going to do is bind the top. For the 4th pocket, you're going to be putting in a zipper. And so again, this 1/4 inch foot, because it's a 1/4 inch on each side, it's great because it just simply runs right down the middle. So on this one, to do this, you want the zipper tape sticking out on the edge so that you can see it. So I have the right sides together. Right sides meaning the side you want to show on the outside. And so this is what I want on the outside, so I call that the right side. This is the zipper part that you're going to be using, so this is the right side. So I have the right sides together with the zipper sticking out. Then I'm going to simply run the zipper, and so the foot of the zipper fits right on the zipper tape. This is the ByAnnie zipper tape, and the reason I like it is because it has a little bit wider edges, and so that it works really well. They're sturdy for making bags, but each side is about a ½ inch, and so by using a foot that's a 1/4 inch on each side, it makes a really straight line. And after I do that, then I'm going to seal this in. You aren't going to have any raw edges because I'm going to turn this under And then I'm going to sew right along the edge, but I'm going to change to my zipper foot. The way I break needles is forgetting to move the needle after I've changed a foot. So I always have to remember to change that. So now I'm going to run right along that edge. And by running right along that edge, I'm going to end up with really nice top stitching on the other side as well. So that's how we do the bottom part of the zipper, and it looks nice on both sides. The next part, we're going to bind the top of it just like we bound the edges of the other. Now this one, I'm going to line this edge up with the edge of the zipper, and I'm going to line it up with the edge of the pocket. I'm going to again put on my 1/4 inch foot because I want to have a 1/4 inch seam that I'm going to wrap around. And again, it goes right down the middle of that zipper tape. So this means, by doing this, it means that I'm going to have the same amount of zipper showing on each side of the teeth. Whoops, caught a piece of thread. And again, it's just like binding the edge of the pockets. You're going to bind the top of this because then we'll stitch it onto the bag, the part that wraps around. With this particular bag, you don't really have to worry about directional fabric because there are pockets on each end of the bag, and so even though it's just one strip that goes all the way around the bottom, because there are pockets on the side, then you can put the pockets on the right way, and you don't need to worry about upside down features on the other part of it. Okay. So there we have the zippered pocket. The only thing we need is a zipper tab. Now I have inserted this onto here, but let me show you how you do it. The trick to being able to use the zippers by the yard is to come in at an angle from the side. And so I'm going to come in here, and I'm not getting up to the tape. I never cut off this end. When I use the zippers by the yard, I always make sure I leave one end that is uncut because it gives you some leader here. And then I come in from the side on the other side. That's the trick. If you try to just go in from the front, it doesn't work as well. Then I'm going to line up the zigzags there, and then I'm going to pull, and that's all there is to it. And then I'm going to take this and I cut it off, and I have my zippered pocket. So after you have your zippered pocket, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to attach it to the end. And this is where I was talking about you can end up with, since this is directional fabric, and so that one end is going to have upside down birds, but because I'm going to put the pocket on, they won't end up being upside down. So to attach the pocket, you line up the pocket with the line that you have drawn on there. You're going to use your 1/4 inch foot again. Whoops. Line up the pocket. Do a little back stitch. So now we have the pocket attached, and you can see that this will now use the edge stitch foot. And I want to make sure that this is very parallel, and so I get this lined up and so that this is where I want it. And I'm going to sew this down, and I'll move the edge stitch, the needle position over. And this is nice because this foot, the edge stitch foot, I have it running so that the edge of the foot is running right along the top binding, and then the guide in the middle is running right along the binding of the zipper. And so that will keep it very, very parallel. And so the foot helps make sure that it keeps exactly parallel. And then we're going to go down. And we'll go over, and up, move this over slightly. Now, all these techniques are really basic Annie bag techniques, and you'll find that you use these in many of her bags. So all of these are pretty standard, but what comes next is not quite as standard. And so we have the ends of the bag done. You can see how it's going to sit, and you have pockets on each end. But now what we're going to do is we're going to make the bellows pockets for the inside. So the bellows pockets are not on very many of the bags, but they're really nice. So to make the bellows pockets, the first thing you're going to do is you'll notice that the iron-on stabilizer is 1/4 inch narrower on each side, so it's 1/2 inch narrower than the fabric itself, and it's 1 inch shorter, and so that you're going to end up trimming the ends, so you don't have to worry about that. So the first thing you are going to do is you're going to sew a seam, and then you're going to wrap this around to the other side. When you wrap it around, then you're going to match up these edges. So I've pressed it, and I'm going to wrap this around, and I'm going to sew the other side, because the bellows pockets, if you notice here, they're loose on the bottom too. And so you're making a tube that has a faux binding on the top and a faux binding on the bottom. So this is where we're going to match those up. Put on our 1/4 inch foot. And here we go. I use the scratch and shift method. So I kind of scratch the top of the fabric and it shifts over. When I'm quilting, it helps me keep the pieces lined up. But I do the same thing when I'm doing bags or garments or something too. So now we have this completed as a tube, and so the next thing we do is we have to turn it right side out. And I've already pressed the top. So now I would take it to the iron and press the bottom. So there you have the faux binding on the top and the bottom. And then after that, this is where I did have to do a little reverse sewing when I did the sample for this. And so just a word of caution. You need to really, really read the directions on how to mark these. And so on the front you're going to be using some kind of chalk liner. And so I used, and you need 2 colors. And so I've marked this middle part with white, and I marked the others with blue. This is what I used. On the other side, because you want this to be able to go away, on the other side, you want these lines to stay there while you sew the front. And so that's why she recommends using a more permanent one. Something like this would work, or one of the heat and gone markers. But you're going to want something, a marker that is going to stay in place, because you're going to be manhandling this on the other side. So once you've marked it, and you need to really follow her directions on keeping it right side up and marking from each end, and then when you turn it over, make sure you keep the top at the top. It'll be important to do that. So to make these, though, it's kind of fun. So let's do this. I'm going to use the edge stitch foot again. As I said, the edge stitch foot is really awesome. I'm going to put it all the way over to the side. And then what you do is you fold this. And you line this. Oh, wait a sec. I am wrong. This is where I really have to use the clear foot, because I have to turn around at the top and stitch right back down. So you start at the bottom. And with this has the red line that I can line up to know exactly where the needle's going to be. So I have lined up with the edge of the foot, and I lined up with the red line there. And I lined up with this side at the edge of the foot, because when I turn around, then I'll line up with the opposite side of the foot. Now I turn it around. This means that at the top of your bag, and you stop right before you get to the binding, it will be reinforced, and you won't have any threads that come undone. So you're going to do this all the way across, and then by sewing on the other side, you'll see this. So I would do all 4 of those, and then I would turn it over, and again start at the bottom. And I can tell where the bottom is because I have edge stitched on by the faux binding. And so again, I just line it up here. I keep that line right there. And then I turn it around, come right back down. And you can see how this then creates a bellows. And so you'll end up with, it will be like this on each side. So that's how you make the bellows pockets. Okay. Now we start putting the bag together. We have the components all completed. And so now we're going to start putting the components together, and the order in which you put them together is really important. And so you don't want to end up sewing the bellows pockets closed. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to sew the handles on. So you've already sewn the handles together, and you have a marked line here, and you go on the inside of that marked line, and look, the other one marked. Nope. What you're going to do is you're going to attach it on the inside, and I clip it, and then I clip it up here at the top. And then we're going to put the edge stitch foot back on. And we've already edge stitched this, and so I'm going to be following right on top of the previous edge stitching. And I have the lines marked on here that were called for. So I'll go up and I'll sew to the second line, go across. Excuse me. Go down. Go back across. And if your edge stitching isn't perfect, it's no problem, because this is all going to be covered up by the outer exterior pocket, and so it's a great place to practice. Because this is how on many of the Annie bags the handles get attached. Now on one of the bags, on this sample bag, I had finished it and was just ready to sew down I had the binding on and everything, and I realized I had put the handle on the wrong side of the line for one of the handles. So I had to take it, that quarter of the bag apart to redo the handle. So you want to be careful. Just the word of, I do try to make all the mistakes so that I can share what happens when you make the mistakes. Okay. So you need to get the handles on. And after you get the handles on, then you can put the bellows on. But it's kind of interesting how you attach them. So okay, and I'm going to sew across to seal the edges. And because I know I'm going to be trimming this corner, because it has to be round, now I'm not going to stay right on the edge. I'm going to go around the corner so that the corner would end up being sealed. so that when I cut that off, that edge is still sealed, and I would end up doing the same thing. Now on the other side, you don't want the bellows pocket to be attached at the bottom, and so you measure up. Let me read to make sure I tell you the right amount. Okay, where do you put it? 3/4 of an inch up. And so when you're measuring, and I kind of like the measurement right here, 3/4 of an inch. And we're going to clip it in place. And you're not going to sew the bottom, you're just going to sew the sides. And then you have that place marked in the middle, and you're going to sew the middle as well. So this is what's going to give you your bellowing pockets on the inside. And it just simply is stitching on the sides. Now I'm going to put the clear foot on, because again I have to stitch up and turn around and come back. So now I'm going to peel the sides away, put the red line right in the middle. And that's why you have a different color marker that you're using on the front, so that as you're going along and sewing all the bellows pleats, you don't accidentally sew on this center line either. So that's why you use a second color on the front to mark that center line. And you can see I need to do a lot of thread trimming, which I will do, but I don't need to do it on camera. So then you're going to add the front pocket. And again, you're going to make sure the bellows are out of the way. You don't want the bellows in the way, so you can clip them to stay out of the way. Or you can pin them. Pinning works great too. We're going to line it up on the bottom. Sides. Okay. And I'm going to put my 1/4 inch foot on. I'm going to do a scant 1/4 inch on this one, because I don't want this line of stitching to show when I do the binding. Again, I can do a rounded corner here. When you have multiple layers of soft and stable, the more times you sew over it, the more compacted it gets. And so that when you go to bind it, the narrower, the thinner the edges are that you're working with. You could even go around and serge them if you wanted, you know, if you used a narrow serging stitch. And then after you get this on, then you're going to mark what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up. I have this stitching line here from the back, and this is a vertical. So I'm going to put this right over. I'm going to make sure this is parallel and that the stitching line is showing through. In fact, let me get this out of the way. I'm going to mark right this way. Then I have a stitching line to stitch on, and so that it should match on the front and on the back. And I want to make sure the bellows pockets are out of the way. And I start at the bottom. I'm going to turn around and go right back down. And so there we have the bellows pockets on. And we are ready to trim off the corners. And we're ready to then to start putting the bag together. So we have this. And what I've done here is I've taken the side and I start at the top. The critical thing is to have these top edges line up. And so I line up the edges like this, and then I clip, clip, clip 3 clips down the side. And then I line up the edges here, and then I clip down to this side. After that, then I center this, and I make sure that then I work the corners so that it's all flat. When you're sewing, you always want to put the flat part down on the bed of the machine. And if you can, tuck the handles in so that they don't get caught on the edges of what you're sewing on. So then after you have this together, and I do backstitch. And you have to manhandle the fabric sometimes. You need to let it know that it's going to go where you want it to go, not where it chooses to go. And so I work with the fabric to keep it going where I want it to go. So I just, especially when you're going around corners, you're going to be adjusting the fabric to move the way you would like it to move. And you'll notice I have a little extra here, but that's fine. I can ease that in pretty easily. And so you want, this is going to be hard to ease because it's double. It's a heavy pocket area. And so the place you're going to be easing, if you need to ease anything, is on the bottom where it's just one layer of fabric. And if it's too small, you can always round the corners a little bit more. And so you can make it fit. So you can ease it or trim it, and nobody will ever know. But as you're coming up here, you need to make sure that this edge stays flat, because that's going to be the top edge of the bag, and you really want the top edges to all match. So that's how you get the sides on the bag. The last step, well, second to last, you'll make the zipper pulls, but the last step then is binding it, and this also has some interesting kinds of challenges. So on this one, I've done part of the binding, but I wanted to show you, I wanted to be able to show you both how to put it on and how to close it up. But you start in, it's important, you're going to have to join this. And so you want to have the join. You're going to start this and you're going to have a tail open. You're going to have the join happen in the middle of the bottom, but you're going to start sewing over by the corner. And so that's a really important point. And then you're going to go up and just continue sewing and down around. And I've come up here and what I've done is I have sewn up to here, and then it's 5.5 inches so that it goes across there. So let's continue on here. I'll show you how that happens. Floss it in. Okay. And you don't press you notice this is not pressed. It works better if you do not press your binding before. Now on a quilt I press mine, but on binding these bags, you know, Annie had recommended and I've tried it her way, and it really does help not to have to. And so I'm just going to go on and sew 5.5 inches. I have a mark across here. I marked it. I stopped and took it off when I got to that point so I could mark it the 5.5 inches. Now I'm going to just continue on. So I'm going to just come and slip the bag in underneath the foot and continue on. You'll notice the flat part of the bag stays on the bed of the machine both times. And so that keeps it from getting twisted up. So for binding this bag, it's all one piece of binding because you go up and around and then back down. And you end up with it's not two different pieces of binding. Whoops. There we go. As I said, you're going to manhandle this, and so that sometimes you have to just let the bag know, the fabric know that you're in charge. And by not having it already pressed, it gives me a little more flexibility. And this is cut on the bias, and so it is a bias binding. And now I'm going to stop here, and I will trim this, and we'll need to cut for just a minute. So when you're going to join these together, you're going to trim these, and so that this miter is equal. Now, the reason you don't have an overlap is because as you're putting it in, you do put some tension on it, and so that it ends up not needing to have a lot of overlap because the bias binding stretches. So when you get it together, then you're going to sew across the waist of this again, just like you have done on all the other to join the binding. And you'll notice that even though I didn't have overlap, now it just pulls in real snug because I keep tension on it as I go around. So I'm going to finish putting that on, and then I'll show you how you go up and around to sew the other side of the binding on. Some people do the other side by hand, but it really works pretty well to do it with machine going both ways. Okay, so now the binding is on. So now what I do is I pull it forward like this all the way around. And make sure it's where I want it. And then you're going to, I'm going to use some clips. And I'm going to make sure that as I go around, I make sure that this is always even all the way around here, and that it's larger than this size, because you're going to end up going to stitch in the ditch again, or at least that's how I do it. So you make sure that this side is bigger than this side where you're going to stitch in the ditch, and that it's even all the way around. See, even on the corner, you're going to have it even going around the corner. So I would do this all the way around. And then I'm going to do it on this side, because what I want to do is show you how to sew the little handle across the top there. So I'm making sure, because it goes up and over and around, and so I want to make sure that it's always even. Now when I get up here, this you're going to fold in and then tuck over. So we're going to fold it in and tuck it. So the raw edges are going to be on the inside, just like they are all the way around the rest of it. So you kind of fold it in thirds. And fold it in thirds. This is kind of a tricky one, but it ends up with a really nice additional handle there. Okay, so now I have it all trimmed. Clipped. You can see how this will end up being like that. And now I'm going to stitch in the ditch. I want to show you how I do that. Sometimes I use the zipper foot if I have lots of bends and things. This time I think I'm just going to use the stitch in the ditch foot. I've tried all different kinds of feet, so whatever you're comfortable with. So I keep making sure that that's pulled over. I come up here. And this is the part where I want to make sure that I have to sew on the front as well as the back. I can't just stitch in the ditch on this part. So here I'm sewing on all of it. I'm gonna ease it on around. I'm going to lay down the other side. Now I go back up onto the bag on the other side, and I continue along the way. So that's how you end up, you would just continue that on around the entire bag. And that's how you end up with these handles. And the only thing left now is the tab for the zipper. And there are some kind of fun tools that make that go fast. And I use all sizes of these bias makers because I really don't buy bias tape anymore. I can make any bias tapes that I want. The last thing is to make the zipper pull. It's an optional thing, but it really does help you in grabbing the zipper, and it's kind of a fun little thing. I use the zipper, the bias tape maker. It's a 1-inch strip for this particular size, but they come in all sizes. This one you can put a piece of tape along here. It feeds through there so that you can iron it on to different quilts and different applications. But this just takes this 1-inch piece and you end up with a perfect piece of bias tape. So that then what we would do here is we would fold it in half like this. I love the Laura Star. And I would go ahead and I would use the edge stitch foot. And I would then just sew right along here using the edge stitch foot, cut it off at an angle, and feed it into the zipper. So this is that's how you make the In Control bag. It's a great little bag. You could use it for a birder to put their binoculars and bird books in. You could use it for a cook to put different spices and things in. You could use it for a baby bag at a changing table to keep all the components you would want for a baby's diaper bag at the changing table. Lots and lots of different uses, and it would be great in the sewing room. So have fun, enjoy, and I'll see you again.